I saw Wicked last night, and it was exactly as I expected. I would have liked a lot of it if I didn't hate it so much. And the only reason I really hated it is because it pretends to be Oz when it's not. It's a corruption or of a betrayal of Oz. It's not the right characters. It's not the spirit of Oz. Um, the ways that it tried to do that and didn't fail, as far as making impressive sets and costumes, were beautiful and wonderful. That was great. The only problem is the story. The acting was great. The costumes and sets and the songs were well sung. Everybody's doing a good job singing and acting. The writing was just terrible, and it was exactly what I expected. It's exactly what I knew Wicked was, a corruption of Oz. And if you took it outside of that, I'll probably make a lot of these videos actually, because I have a lot to say about how it's not Oz. But if you just made it its own story and wasn't trying to be Oz, it would still have some problems as a story in a movie, but not nearly as many. So most of my complaints and what helped hurt me from enjoying the movie or thinking it was great was knowing Oz better than most people do. So if you don't know Oz, you'll probably enjoy this movie, and you'll probably enjoy it either way. But if you know Oz like me, then you won't enjoy it pretending to be Oz and corrupting and betraying the characters and just doing a bad job of, well, not doing any job at all, really. I'll say for comparison, I had to re-Ozify myself after this movie. So I watched the first half of The Wiz, and The Wiz is fantastic. I'll probably do a whole section or series about The Wiz and how great The Wiz is. But Wicked is just not fantastic, only because it's not Oz. It could have been so much more if it had respected and drawn from the actual source material, or even read some of the books, even one of the books. You can kind of tell that it just doesn't have the awareness of Oz, and I knew that again from what I've known about Wicked, even though I've never seen it before. My friend I went to it with had seen the play when point out some things that were different in the play, but I can't imagine the musical, being that much better because of the same basic premises that are just anti-Oz. There's no racism in Oz, there's no classism in Oz, and those are really essential parts of this story. Not racism per se, because there's only one person that they're ostracizing, and there's other people who are different in different ways that aren't part of a racist system, except for the animals. Again, this is just not Oz. In Oz, there is no racism against the animals. I'm not going to spoil that much of the story in this initial review. I'm just going to say, hey, it's not Oz. So there's so much more to Oz that you can appreciate more. Or I'll put it this way: The Wizard of Oz, the movie that everyone knows and loves, probably the most influential movie in the world in the history of humankind, is a great movie and wonderful, but it's about half as good as Oz, the book, or the books. It's about half as good as Oz should be. It's still really good. Wicked's about maybe 5 or 10% as good as Oz should be. So I'm not saying don't go see this movie. You'll enjoy it. It's an enjoyable movie. There's a lot to enjoy in it. Just know that there's 10 times as much enjoyment and enrichment from Oz the stories. So read one of those. Do yourselves a favor, and it won't spoil your ability to enjoy the movie like it seems to have done mine. I just really, really care about Oz. I've always really, really cared about Oz for since reading the books in the 80s, and a lot of people who've read them for 100 years now really care about them. So hopefully the popularity of this movie will bring out more of these discussions where people talk about what Oz is really about, and how this movie failed to do that is a good way to get at what it's missing. And I knew it wasn't going to do it. You can see my live or my preview review of this movie that the ideas of Oz are so good, they're not going to popularize them. They're not going to make them mainstream. They're not going to allow them to be accessible in a movie that everybody's being encouraged to see. They're going to continue to hide them, or more than that, replace them. They're going to take the good characters with Oz and make them bad, and diminish the things about Oz that are inspiring as a utopian society, so that we don't get those ideas in the packaging that they're going to give the masses. It's like Fish and the Grateful Dead. It's like Christianity and Jesus. It's like so many different things that they replace something good with something inferior in order to distract people, or even anti the original spirit of the thing, in order to distract people from the goodness in the original. So hopefully Wicked and the popularity of Wicked will lead to more discussion of Oz, the real utopia, the real world where in the future where there's no racism and there's no war and there's no poverty and there's no money, and how essential those ideas are, and how none of those ideas are going to play out in a movie that's based on class system and racism, or at least versions of the allusions to these ideas without actually exploring them, addressing them. There's good messages in Wicked. Again, if you completely divorced it from Oz, if you weren't trying to uh, remake Oz in a way that's disrespectful, then if you didn't have any claims to the potential to get to these ideas that they never get to, that they actually enforce a lot of the opposite ideas and the opposite philosophy. If you weren't doing that, then it might be fine on its own. But going against the nature of Oz, and again, you've seen the nature of Oz in some other productions, somewhat in The Wizard of Oz itself, the movie, in The Wiz, in some of the other Muppets, Wizard of Oz. There's really great Oz movies out there that get a lot more to the real Oz, definitely than Wicked, but even than each other in different ways. But the real Oz is there for everyone to read in the books. So I encourage you to read some of the books, including TikTok of Oz from 1914. Oz predicts a lot of future tech, and it also, to me, predicts the future of humanity, a world with no war and no money. But even Oz has borders, so there's a future beyond that as well that I see. But the future that Oz promises us, with no war and no money and no racism and none of this evil bigotry stuff that we suffer from so much right now, if we have these ideas out there, we can stop these evil patterns in our world. And we can do that by, say, if somebody else wanted to write a backstory of the Wicked Witch or something that's more respectful to Oz, that space is open for them to do it, because it hasn't been done yet. It hasn't been done well yet. So somebody else could do it well, and it would be really popular and sell really well. Or maybe they'll only let it do that if it takes out the main ideas. So think about that, and think about Oz, and let's talk more, because I'll be making more of these videos. But go see Wicked. It's fun. Beautiful acting, beautiful costumes, beautiful sets. A lot to see that's really beautiful and enjoy that's really beautiful. The songs and everything will be better, but I'll talk about those in other videos. The dialogue could be better. It's not Dr. Seuss. In Oz, there's wordplay, but not just a bunch of jumbled up words. So, and it's not Harry Potter either. So I'll talk more about Oz as we go along. Thanks.